The next area of importance is the extended attributes found on the Parties tab. For this to make sense, we first need to discuss an important aspect of names and how they work. Each name entry has an address and a name. When you see this in the name area, you are seeing the most current address and name shown. But in many instances, we find that companies might change their name or their address. So how is this dealt with in Patricia? 3 important points to mention. 1. Patricia has the functionality to create multiple name or address versions per name number. 2. When this occurs, the newest name or address version is marked as the current entry. This is then seen as the latest and active name or address version. 3. Each name and address version can be linked to a case. This will become clearer as we delve deeper into how this works. Let's first look at an example. Let's imagine we have a company called Smiley Face Shoes Incorporated. This company resides at 1 Silly Street, Sillington, 0001. In Patricia, we already know what this would look like. This is visible in the Parties tab if we click on the Extended Attributes button as well. The Extended Attributes button shows us detailed name and address information. Keep this window in mind as we will soon be visiting here again. Next, let's quickly open a name entry from the Parties tab. A quick way to do this is to click on the icon found next to the name entry. We can clearly see both the name and the address listed. So far, so good. Now, let's say that Smiley Face Shoes decides to move to a different address. They pack up their bags and now reside at 5 Not Silly Street, Ferry Glen. How do we deal with this in Patricia? Remember that we still have the old address recorded against this entity, and we now need to update it to the new address. We can now choose to do one of 2 things. We either choose to edit the information or to add the information. Let's look at the edit option first. When you edit an existing entry, you are replacing the existing address with the new details. In effect, we are editing the existing entry, and the old address is not available to use in any form, as it's been replaced. Let's see this in action. Our case reflects the old address details, and I now go and edit the existing entry on the names. Let's see how this affected our case. If we look at our case, it immediately reflects the new address with no intervention from our side. Why? It's because the address version that the case was linked to was edited. This also means that all cases with that address version connected will also reflect the new address. This is because we edited the existing entry instead of adding a new address version. But this leaves us with a problem, and this leads to the second way of updating, the add option. What if we had a trademark filing with an applicant name and address recorded on an official register? At the time of filing the trademark, the first address was indeed correct, but since then, the company has moved. We cannot simply update the address on applicant directly, as this would negatively affect the applicant details. Nothing formal has been submitted at the TMO, so editing our entry will mean that there will be a discrepancy in our records. So let's look at the second option then. Instead of editing an existing entry, we will add a new version of an address. This new version will then be marked as the current or up-to-date record. This now means that none of the cases will be updated with the new address directly, and we will have to do this manually. Let's see this in action. Note how I'm clicking Add instead of Edit when adding my name address. A pop-up appears asking to confirm whether I want to add and not edit the address. I now make the necessary changes. Back in my case, I can see nothing has changed, and the old address still reflects. Compare that to the names area, and note that the names area contains the newest name and address, but the record still contains the old details. Why? It is because we have two versions of the address. The old version is linked to the case still, and the newest version is shown as the current entry. So how does the extended attributes fit in? The extended attributes allow you to move between name and address versions of names by using the green arrows you see here. Once you have the address or name that you want, you can click Save, and that version of the name or address is saved to the case. Remember that name changes work exactly like address version changes, and every point mentioned applies. The way you go about updating names and addresses really depend on the needs of your organization. The takeaway in this video should be that Patricia has functionality to deal with multiple name and address versions per name entry, and these name and address versions are linked to a case. If you are unsure as to what route to take with the updating, please contact your super user to advise.